You're picking her? The words hit like a slap. Emma Whitmore stood frozen in the dusty parlor while her father's face went purple with rage. Wyatt Brooks, 6 feet of weathered muscle and quiet steel, had just chosen the wrong daughter. Not Lydia, the beautiful one. Not the prize meant to save their failing ranch. Emma, the invisible one. The worthless one. Her father's hand moved to his belt, but before he could speak, Emma heard herself say the words that would change everything. I'll go. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning had started like every other morning in Emma Whitmore's 23 years, before dawn, before anyone else stirred, before the world required her to shrink. She was in the kitchen when she heard the horse, not their horses. Those she knew by sound, the nervous shuffle of her father's gelding, the heavy plod of the work mares. This was different, deliberate. The rider knew where he was going. Emma's hand stilled in the dishwater. Through the window over the sink, she watched a man dismount in the yard. Tall, broad-shouldered in a way that came from work, not posturing. His hat sat low, shadowing his face, but she caught the line of his jaw, hard, clean, uncompromising. Emma! Her father's voice cracked through the house like a whip. Get your sister down here, now! She dried her hands, climbed the stairs, knocked on Lydia's door. What? Lydia's voice was thick with sleep. Someone's here? Then you deal with it. A pause. Unless it's someone important. Emma's throat tightened. Father wants you. That changed things. Lydia was up, suddenly focused, already calculating. Who is it? I don't know. But she did know. In the way you know things that will hurt you. This visitor was the reason her father had been unbearable for the past 2 weeks. The reason he'd forbidden Lydia from riding into town, had scrutinized her dresses, had snapped at Emma to keep the house spotless. Someone was coming to look at his daughters. To buy one. No, not buy. That was too crude a word for what happened when a ranch was failing and a man had 2 unmarried daughters and no sons. The polite word was arrangement. The real word was survival. Emma retreated to the kitchen while Lydia descended the stairs like a queen, blonde hair perfect, dress pressed, everything about her manufactured for this exact moment. Emma had seen her sister prepare for attention the way other people prepared for war. Through the doorway, she caught fragments. Wyatt Brooks, pleased to make your acquaintance. Fine establishment you have here. Her father's voice, oily with desperation disguised as hospitality. Lydia's laugh, practiced and bright. Emma kept her hands busy. There was bread to knead, eggs to collect, floors to sweep. Work was safe. Work was invisible. If she kept moving, kept useful, maybe she could avoid... Emma, get in here. She flinched, set down the bowl, wiped her hands on her apron, already stained with flour and God knew what else, and walked into the parlor. 3 faces turned toward her. Her father's was tight with irritation, the look that said she was disrupting something. Lydia's was carefully blank, but Emma caught the flash of annoyance in her eyes. The third face. The stranger's eyes were the color of creek water in winter, gray-blue, clear. They didn't slide past her the way most men's did. They didn't dismiss her as furniture. They looked at her. Actually looked. This is my other daughter, her father said, the words clipped. Other. As if she were an afterthought. A footnote. Emma. Ma'am. Wyatt Brooks stood, removed his hat. His voice was low, rough around the edges like unfinished wood. Emma nodded, didn't speak. Speaking made her visible, and visibility in this house was dangerous. Mr. Brooks owns the Brooks Ranch, her father continued. His tone shifted when he said the name, took on weight. 60,000 acres, cattle, horses, water rights through the whole valley. 60,000 acres. Emma knew what that meant. It meant power. It meant security. It meant everything her father didn't have and was willing to trade his daughters to get. I was just telling your father, Wyatt said, and his attention was still on her, not Lydia, that I'm looking for a wife. The word should have sounded romantic. They didn't. They sounded like what they were. A transaction. A partnership, her father jumped in, between our families. Lydia shifted forward just slightly, enough to draw the eye. She smiled. Mr. Brooks was just telling us about his ranch. It sounds remarkable. It's a lot of land, Wyatt said. A lot of work. Oh, I'm certain it is. Lydia's voice had that musical quality she could summon at will. But I imagine it must be beautiful. Parts of it. His gaze hadn't left Emma. Parts of it are hard. Dry summers. Harsh winters. It's not easy country. Well, Lydia pressed on, undeterred, I've always thought hardship builds character, don't you think? Wyatt's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. I think hardship builds calluses. Emma felt her own lips curve before she could stop them. She caught herself, dropped her gaze. When she looked up again, Wyatt was watching her with something that might have been amusement. Emma, her father said sharply, don't you have work to do? She can stay, Wyatt said. The room went very still. Her father's jaw worked. Mr. Brooks, I assure you, Lydia is far more suited to— I'd like to speak with Emma. The words landed like stones in water. Ripples of shock spread through the parlor. Lydia's smile froze. I'm sorry? If you don't mind, Wyatt said, but he wasn't asking permission. Just a few minutes. Emma's heart was suddenly loud in her ears. This wasn't how it worked. This wasn't the plan. Lydia was the prize. Emma was the mistake, the spare, the one who cleaned up after everyone else and kept her mouth shut. Her father's face had gone red. Mr. Brooks, I think there's been some confusion. No confusion. Wyatt's voice stayed level, but there was iron underneath. I'd like to talk to Emma. Alone, if possible. Absolutely not, her father said. It's improper. The door can stay open. Sir, I must insist. Then insist outside. Wyatt's gaze finally left Emma, landed on her father. I'm not here to waste anyone's time. I know what I'm looking for. For a moment, Emma thought her father might refuse, might order this man out of his house, consequences be damned. Pride was a funny thing. It could make a desperate man do stupid things. But desperation was stronger than pride. 10 minutes, her father bit out. He stood, gestured sharply to Lydia. Come. Lydia rose slowly, her composure cracking just enough for Emma to see the fury underneath. Daddy, now. They left. The door stayed open, just barely. Emma could hear her father's angry whisper in the hallway, Lydia's hissed response. And then it was just her and Wyatt Brooks. She stayed standing. So did he. You don't have to look so terrified, he said. I'm not terrified. The words came out too fast. She was absolutely terrified. You look like you're waiting for me to hit you. Emma's hands tightened in her apron. Are you going to? No. He said it simply. I don't hit women. Or anyone, if I can avoid it. Oh. She didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know what to do with any of this. Sit down, Wyatt said. Please. She sat. He sat across from her, his big frame looking slightly ridiculous in her father's delicate parlor chairs. I'm going to be direct, he said. I need a wife. My father's been on me about it for 2 years, and he's right. I can't run a ranch that size alone. I need someone who can handle the work. The real work, not just the pretty parts. Emma nodded slowly. And you think that's me? I think your sister's never done a day's labor in her life. She's very accomplished, Emma heard herself say, the old loyalty surfacing even now. She can play piano, she speaks French, Can she birth a calf? Emma blinked. What? Can she repair a fence? Treat a horse for colic? Keep books? Make a meal for 20 hands? Shoot a rifle? I don't. Can you? The question hung between them. Emma thought of the past 10 years. Of learning to do everything because no one else would. Of fixing the chicken coop when it collapsed. Of nursing their mare through a difficult foaling. Of balancing her father's ledgers because he was too drunk to do it himself. Of feeding the ranch hands when they still had ranch hands, before everything fell apart. Yes, she said quietly. Wyatt leaned back. That's what I thought. How did you? Your hands, he gestured. They're not soft. You've got a scar on your thumb that looks like barbed wire. Your dress is clean, but it's been mended 3 times. You know how to make things last. He paused. And you came to the door when you heard my horse, but you didn't come to greet me. You were working. Emma's face heated. I didn't think I wasn't supposed to. You weren't supposed to be seen. His voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. Your father wanted to show off your sister, But I didn't come here for show. Then why did you come? I told you, I need a partner. Someone who understands that a ranch isn't a party. It's work. Every day. Early mornings and late nights. And sometimes things go wrong and you have to be strong enough to handle it. He met her eyes. I think you know what that's like. Emma's throat was tight. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know you're the one who keeps this place running, not your sister. I know your father treats you like hired help. I know... He stopped. I know what it's like to be invisible. You? She couldn't help the skepticism. You own 60,000 acres. My father owns 60,000 acres. I'm just the son who's supposed to inherit it. If I do everything right, if I marry the right woman, if I produce the right heir. His jaw tightened. We're both trying to meet someone else's expectations. Emma looked at him, really looked. Saw the tension in his shoulders, the weariness around his eyes. He was tired. Like her. So this is business, she said. It's honest. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I won't lie to you. I'm not offering romance. I'm not going to pretend this is anything other than what it is, a partnership. But I'm offering respect. I'm offering a place where your work matters, where you matter. And if I say no, then I tip my hat and ride on. Your father can't force you. He paused. Can he? Emma thought of the belt, the locked doors, the nights without dinner, the constant litany of worthless, useless, why couldn't you be more like your sister? No, she said. It was almost true. Wyatt watched her for a long moment, then he stood. Think about it. I'm at the hotel in town through tomorrow. If you want to come, come. If you don't, I'll understand. Just like that? Just like that. He retrieved his hat. For what it's worth, Emma, I think you're braver than you know. He left before she could respond. The parlor felt very empty. Emma sat in the silence, her mind racing. This was insane. He was a stranger. She didn't know him, didn't know his ranch, didn't know what kind of man he really was beneath the polite words. But she knew this house, knew her father, knew what her future looked like if she stayed. Years of invisible labor, of being diminished, of watching Lydia marry well while Emma remained the unmarriageable one, the failed daughter, the burden. At least with Wyatt Brooks she'd be useful. At least someone saw her. The door slammed open. Her father stormed in, Lydia right behind him. What did he say? Her father demanded. Emma stood. He asked me to marry him. Lydia laughed, actually laughed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not. Emma's voice was steady. He wants me, not Lydia. Me. Her father's face went through several colors. That's impossible. He can't. You're not. He seemed to struggle with the words. There's been a mistake. There's no mistake. Emma, stop this nonsense right now. Lydia's voice was sharp. This is obviously some kind of test. He's being polite. You're embarrassing yourself. He was very clear. You? Her father found his voice again, found his rage. He wants you? What did you do? What did you say to him? Nothing. You must have done something, said something. You ruined this. He advanced on her. Do you have any idea what you've cost us? What this marriage could have meant? He still wants to marry a Whitmore, Emma said. Just not Lydia. Because you tricked him somehow. Manipulated. I was in the kitchen when he arrived. Don't you raise your voice to me. Her father's hand shot out, gripped her arm, hard enough to bruise. You're going to fix this. You're going to go to him and tell him you can't possibly accept. You're going to convince him Lydia is the right choice. And if I don't? The slap came fast. Emma's head snapped to the side. You'll do as you're told, her father said. Or so help me. I'll go. The words came out quiet. Final. Her father's grip loosened. What? I said I'll go. Emma straightened, tasted blood where her lip had split against her teeth. I'll marry him. Like hell you will. You can't stop me. Her heart was pounding now, fear and fury mixing into something that felt almost like courage. I'm of age. He made an offer. I'm accepting. You ungrateful... Her father's face was purple now. After everything I've done for you, fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head, you mean after I've fed you, cleaned for you, held this place together while you drank yourself stupid every night. The words were coming faster now, all the things she'd swallowed for years. You want gratitude? For what? For treating me like a servant? For telling me I'm worthless every day of my life? You are worthless, Lydia hissed. You think he actually wants you? He's settling. You're the consolation prize. Maybe. Emma looked at her sister. But at least I'm someone's prize. What are you now, Lydia, now that your buyer chose wrong? Lydia's hand flew up. Emma caught her wrist. Don't, Emma said. For a moment they stood frozen. Then Lydia wrenched away, her perfect composure finally cracking. You're going to regret this. You think his family will accept you. You think you can handle that life? You'll fail. You'll come crawling back, and we won't be here. Good, Emma said. She turned to her father. I'm leaving in the morning. I'll take what's mine. You have nothing that's yours. Then I'll take nothing. She was shaking now, but she kept her voice level. Tell him I accept. Or don't. I'll tell him myself. She walked past them, up the stairs, to her small room under the eaves, closed the door, leaned against it. Her hands were trembling. She'd just thrown away the only life she'd ever known. For what? A stranger's promise? The chance to be useful to someone new? No. For the look in Wyatt Brooks's eyes when he said you matter. For the possibility that somewhere, somehow, she could be more than invisible. Emma didn't sleep that night. She packed her few belongings, 2 dresses, a photograph of her mother, a book of poetry her grandmother had given her. Everything fit in a single carpet bag. When dawn came, she dressed in her sturdiest clothes, braided her hair, washed the blood from her lip. Downstairs, the house was silent. Her father hadn't come home. Probably spent the night drinking at the saloon, raging to anyone who'd listen about ungrateful daughters. Lydia's door was closed. Emma left a note on the kitchen table. Just 3 words. I'm sorry, Lydia. She wasn't sorry for leaving, but she was sorry for the years of comparing, the way their father had pitted them against each other, made them enemies when they should have been allies. Maybe someday Lydia would understand. Maybe not. Emma walked the 3 miles to town as the sun rose. Her feet ached by the time she reached the hotel. For a moment, standing in the street with dust settling on her skirts, she almost turned back. Then she thought of her father's hand on her arm. Lydia's laughter. The locked door and the empty stomach and the years of you're worthless, you're nothing. Why weren't you born a son? She climbed the steps, asked the clerk for Wyatt Brooks's room. He left, the clerk said. Checked out an hour ago. Emma's stomach dropped. He's gone? Rode out east. Probably halfway back to his ranch by now. She'd waited too long, hesitated, and now. Emma. She turned. Wyatt stood in the doorway of the hotel dining room, coffee cup in hand. He looked tired, like maybe he hadn't slept either. I thought, the clerk said, I checked out, he confirmed, but I haven't left yet. Why not? Wanted breakfast, and he paused. Wanted to give you until noon. It's barely 7. I know. He set down the coffee cup. You came anyway. Emma nodded, didn't trust her voice. You're sure? Wyatt asked. Because once we do this, there's no going back. I won't bring you back here. Won't let your father have another chance at you. I'm sure, she said. He studied her face. Saw the split lip probably, the bruise forming on her arm. His expression went very still. He hit you. It wasn't a question. It doesn't matter. It does to me. Wyatt's voice was quiet, dangerous. Did he do worse? No, just, this is normal. It shouldn't be. Emma met his eyes. A lot of things shouldn't be, but they are. Wyatt nodded slowly. Then he picked up his hat from the chair beside him. There's a preacher 2 streets over. We can be married in an hour. Then we ride. That fast? You want to wait? Give your father time to find us? To drag you back? No? Emma straightened. No, I don't. Then let's go. The ceremony was brief, perfunctory. The preacher was old and half-blind and clearly didn't care who was marrying whom as long as he got paid. Emma signed her name in shaky letters. Wyatt's signature was bold and clear. And just like that, she was Emma Brooks. They left town within the hour. Wyatt had a spare horse, a steady mare with kind eyes. Emma had ridden before, but not often, not far. Her legs ached within the first mile. She didn't complain. They rode in silence through the morning. The landscape changed gradually, from the familiar scrubland near her father's failing ranch to wilder country. Hills rose up, covered in sage and juniper. The air smelled different, cleaner. "How far?" Emma asked finally. "Another day's ride. We'll camp tonight." "Camp? Unless you'd rather ride straight through." He glanced at her. "But I'm guessing you're not used to long hours in the saddle." "I'll manage." "I know you will." There was something almost like approval in his voice. "But there's no shame in stopping. We're not running from anything anymore." Weren't they, though? But Emma nodded, let him lead her off the main trail to a spot near a creek, watched as he unsaddled the horses with efficient movements, set up camp with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. "You know how to start a fire?" he asked. "Yes." "Good, I'll get water." She gathered kindling, struck the flint, coaxed the flames to life. By the time Wyatt returned, she had a small fire going and was unpacking the supplies he'd brought: dried beef, hard bread, coffee. They ate in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You're quiet," Wyatt said eventually. "So are you." "I'm always quiet." He poured coffee into 2 tin cups, handed her one. I'm not so sure about." Emma wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into her palms. "What do you want me to say?" "Whatever you're thinking." "I'm thinking I don't know what I'm doing. I'm thinking I just married a stranger and rode away from everything I've ever known. I'm thinking—" She stopped. "I'm thinking I should be terrified." "Should be?" "I'm not." She looked at him over the rim of the cup. "I should be. But I'm not." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, then, "I meant what I said, about respect, about partnership. I won't—" He seemed to struggle with the words. "I won't force anything. You understand?" Emma's face heated. "Oh, we're married in name. That's enough for now. For my father, for appearances. The rest, if it happens, it happens. But not until you want it." She nodded. Didn't know what to say to that. "There's a bedroll for you," Wyatt continued. "I'll take first watch." "Watch for what?" "Animals, drifters, old habits." He shrugged. "I don't sleep much anyway." Emma settled into the bedroll as darkness fell. Above her, stars emerged in impossible numbers. She'd never seen so many. In town, the lights obscured them. Out here, there was nothing but sky. She thought of Lydia, sleeping in her comfortable bed, of her father, probably still raging, of the life she'd left behind, and felt nothing but relief. When she woke, the sun was already up. Wyatt had coffee ready, the horses saddled. They rode through the morning, through country that grew progressively rougher. The hills became mountains, the air thinned. "Almost there," Wyatt said as they crested a rise. Emma looked down. The Brooks Ranch sprawled across the valley below. A main house, barns, outbuildings, corrals. Cattle dotted the pastures. In the distance, she could see riders moving through the herd. It was vast, intimidating, real. "That's home," Wyatt said quietly. "Home." Emma tested the word in her mind. It felt foreign. They rode down. As they approached, Emma saw people stopping to stare. A man emerged from the barn, older, hard-faced, with Wyatt's eyes but none of his quiet. "You're back," the man said. Then his gaze landed on Emma. "And you brought company." "Father, this is Emma, my wife." The silence that followed was deafening. The older man's face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, fury. "You're what?" "My wife. We were married yesterday." "You married?" He looked Emma up and down, his expression making it clear she was found wanting. "This? This is what you chose?" "Yes. I sent you to marry Lydia Whitmore, the Whitmore daughter, not—" "Emma is a Whitmore daughter," Wyatt said, his voice level but hard. "And she's my choice." "Your choice." His father laughed, bitter and sharp. "You stupid boy. Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've cost us?" Emma felt every eye on her. The ranch hands had stopped working, were watching the scene unfold. "I know exactly what I've done," Wyatt said. "You've embarrassed us. You've made us a laughingstock. You think anyone will respect this? Respect her?" He gestured at Emma like she was livestock. "Look at her. She's nothing. A nobody. Emma's hands tightened on the reins. She'd expected this, hadn't she? Knew she wasn't what they wanted, but hearing it still cut. Enough, Wyatt said. I'll say when it's enough. This is my ranch, my land, and you've just brought shame to all. I said enough. Wyatt's voice cracked like a whip. Emma is my wife. That makes her family. You will treat her with respect, or you'll answer to me. Father and son stared at each other. Emma could feel the weight of history between them, years of conflict. Finally, the older man spat in the dust. Fine. Bring your mistake inside, but don't expect me to pretend this is anything other than what it is. A disaster. He stalked toward the house. Wyatt turned to Emma. I'm sorry. Don't be. Her voice was steady. I knew what I was signing up for. Did you? Emma looked at the house, the ranch, the watching eyes. No, she admitted. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Wyatt's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. All right then, let's go face the disaster together. They dismounted. Emma's legs were shaky from the long ride. She ignored it, squared her shoulders, followed Wyatt into the house that was supposed to be her home, into the battlefield she'd just chosen, into a future she'd have to fight for with everything she had. But at least it was hers. The house was colder inside than the morning air. Not temperature, though the stone floors held on to winter like a grudge, but atmosphere. Emma felt it the moment she crossed the threshold, a heaviness that had nothing to do with the dark wood paneling or the hunting trophies mounted on the walls. Wyatt's father had disappeared down a hallway. Somewhere deeper in the house, a door slammed. That went well, Wyatt muttered. Emma set down her carpet bag. Her whole life, reduced to one small bag that looked pathetic against the grandeur of this entrance hall. Crystal chandelier overhead, imported rugs, furniture that cost more than her father's entire ranch. Where should I? She started. Margaret, Wyatt called. Footsteps approached. A woman appeared from what Emma assumed was the kitchen, middle-aged, gray hair pulled back severely, her expression neutral in a way that seemed practiced. Sir, this is Emma, my wife. She'll need a room prepared. Margaret's eyes flicked to Emma, then back to Wyatt. Your room, sir? The blue room, across the hall from mine. Something passed across Margaret's face too quickly for Emma to read. Of course, I'll have it ready within the hour. Thank you. Wyatt turned to Emma. Margaret runs the house. Anything you need, ask her. Margaret nodded once, still neutral. Ma'am? Then she was gone, silent as smoke. She hates me, Emma said. She doesn't know you. She knows I'm not Lydia. Wyatt's jaw tightened. Everyone's going to know that. Might as well get used to it. He led her through the house, pointing out rooms, the dining room, the study, the parlor. Everything was too fine, too polished. Emma's boots left dust prints on the floor. She felt like she was tracking mud through a museum. The ranch hands eat in the bunkhouse, Wyatt was saying, but you'll take meals with us. Family meals. Father insists. That sounds pleasant. He caught the sarcasm, almost smiled. It's not, but it's expected. They climbed the stairs. The blue room was at the end of the hall, smaller than she'd expected. A bed, a wardrobe, a washstand. The window looked out over the corrals. It's not much, Wyatt said. It's mine? Yes. Emma had never had her own room. At home, she'd slept in the attic, a space so small she couldn't stand up straight. This room had actual wallpaper, curtains, a door that closed. It's perfect, she said quietly. Wyatt lingered in the doorway. Dinner's at 6. Father expects everyone on time. I'll be there. He nodded, started to leave, stopped. Emma, what he said earlier, about you being nothing. He's wrong. You don't have to. I'm not saying it to be kind. I'm saying it because it's true. His gray-blue eyes met hers. You're here because I wanted you here. Don't forget that. Then he was gone. Emma sat on the bed. The mattress was soft, well-made. She thought of the thin pallet she'd slept on for years, the way her back always ached in the mornings. She thought of Lydia in her comfortable room, probably still furious. She thought of her father's face when Wyatt had chosen wrong, and she felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Not quite happiness. Not yet, but something close to hope. The reprieve lasted an hour. Then Margaret returned with fresh linens and a dress draped over her arm. Mrs. Brooks, the elder Mrs. Brooks, sent this, Margaret said, her tone carefully blank. For dinner tonight. Emma took the dress. It was beautiful, deep green silk, expensive lace at the collar. It was also clearly meant for someone taller, curvier, someone like Lydia. There's no elder Mrs. Brooks, Emma said carefully. No, ma'am. She passed 8 years ago. But her things are still here. Mr. Brooks, the senior, he hasn't cleared them out. Emma held the dress up. This won't fit. No, ma'am, probably not. There was something in Margaret's tone, not quite sympathy, maybe recognition. Should I wear it anyway? Margaret met her eyes for the first time. That depends on whether you want to look like you're playing dress-up in a dead woman's clothes or whether you'd rather face them in what you came with. It wasn't advice, not exactly, but it was something. Thank you, Emma said. Margaret nodded. Dinner at 6. Don't be late. Emma wore her own dress. It was plain brown wool, mended at the elbows, nothing like the silk gown. But it was hers. It fit. She braided her hair, splashed water on her face, and went downstairs at 5 minutes to 6. The dining room was cavernous. A table that could seat 20 dominated the space. Crystal and silver gleamed under lamplight. Wyatt's father already sat at the head of the table, a glass of whiskey in front of him. He looked up when Emma entered. His expression didn't change. Sit, he said. Emma chose a chair halfway down the table. Wrong choice, apparently, because the old man's eyes narrowed. Family sits close. Unless you don't consider yourself family. She moved to a chair closer to him. Still not close enough, judging by his face, but he didn't comment again. Wyatt arrived exactly at 6. His eyes found Emma checking. She gave a small nod. Margaret served the meal, roasted beef, potatoes, vegetables that actually had flavor. Emma's stomach growled. She'd barely eaten since yesterday. She reached for her fork. We say grace in this house, Wyatt's father said. Emma froze. Put the fork down. They bowed their heads. The old man spoke words Emma barely heard. When he finished, she reached for her fork again. So, he said, cutting into his beef with precise movements. Emma Whitmore, tell me about yourself. It wasn't a request. It was a test. What would you like to know? Emma asked. Everything. Where you're from, what your people do, why my son chose you over your clearly superior sister. Father, Wyatt warned. It's a fair question. She's sitting at our table, wearing our name. I think I'm entitled to know what we've gotten ourselves into. Emma set down her fork carefully. My father owns a small ranch about 40 miles west. Cattle, mostly, though the herd's been dwindling. My mother died when I was 12. I have one sister. The beautiful one. Yes. And what do you do, Emma, on this small, dwindling ranch? Everything. She met his eyes. I keep the books, manage the household, repair what breaks, help with the livestock when needed. A regular frontier woman. His tone made it sound like an insult. And your accomplishments? Can you play piano, speak French, organize a proper dinner party? No. No, he repeated. So you're useful, but not refined. Capable, but not cultured. My son married a hired hand. I married a partner, Wyatt said, his voice hard. Did you? His father turned to him. Because from where I'm sitting, you married the wrong woman out of some misguided notion of what? Charity? Rebellion? I married the woman I wanted. You married a woman I'll be embarrassed to present to our investors, to our neighbors, to anyone with half a brain. He gestured at Emma with his knife. Look at her, Wyatt. She's wearing a dress a servant would reject. She has no polish, no grace, no... She has strength, Wyatt cut in. She has competence. She has more integrity in her little finger than half the so-called refined women you wanted me to consider. Integrity doesn't run a ranch. Neither does playing piano. The old man's face went red. You think you're clever? You think you've won something? This ranch requires more than hard work. It requires connections, alliances. Your mother understood that. She came from a good family. She brought respectability, resources. He looked at Emma. What does this one bring? Debt and a drunk for a father? Emma felt the words land like punches. He'd investigated her family. Of course he had. That's enough, Wyatt said, standing. Sit down. No, we're done here. You walk out of this room and you're proving my point, that you're not ready, that this marriage is a mistake. Wyatt's hands were fists at his sides. Emma could see him struggling, caught between his father and his pride. It's fine, Emma said quietly. Sit down. Wyatt looked at her. You don't have to. I said it's fine. She turned to Wyatt's father. You're right. I'm not refined. I don't speak French. I can't plan a dinner party. My father is a drunk, and my family is falling apart, and I have nothing to offer you except work. She paused. But I'm here, and I'm not leaving. So you can insult me through every meal, or you can accept that this is what you've got. Your choice. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Wyatt's father laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh, but it wasn't entirely mocking either. Well, at least she has a spine. He went back to his meal. Conversation over. Emma picked up her fork. Her hands were shaking. She ate anyway, barely tasting the food. When dinner finally ended, she excused herself and fled to her room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and let herself shake. A knock. Emma? Wyatt's voice? She opened the door. I'm sorry, he said immediately. He had no right. He had every right. It's his house, his ranch. That doesn't give him the right to tear you down. Emma leaned against the doorframe. He's testing me. He's being cruel. Maybe. But he's also not wrong. I am a liability. I don't fit here. I don't know how to be what this place needs. Wyatt was quiet for a moment. You know what this place actually needs? Someone who won't break. Someone who can take a hit and keep standing. He met her eyes. You did that tonight. Most people would have run. I didn't have anywhere to run to. That's not why you stayed. He said it with certainty. You stayed because you're stubborn, because you made a choice and you're seeing it through. Emma felt something in her chest loosen. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. He almost smiled. Get some rest. Tomorrow the real work starts. She should have asked what that meant. Should have pressed for details. Instead, she just nodded and closed the door. Morning came too early. Emma woke to darkness and the sound of roosters. She dressed quickly, found her way downstairs by memory and lamplight. Margaret was in the kitchen, already working. Coffee's on the stove, she said without looking up. Breakfast is in an hour. Can I help? Now Margaret looked up. With what? Whatever you're doing. Margaret studied her for a long moment. Then she handed Emma a knife and pointed to a pile of potatoes. Those need peeling. They worked in silence. Emma fell into the familiar rhythm. Peel, rinse, repeat. Her hands knew this work. You did all right last night, Margaret said eventually. I made a fool of myself. You held your ground. That's different. Margaret cracked eggs into a bowl. The old man respects strength, hates weakness. You showed him strength. By letting him insult me? By not crumbling. Margaret whisked the eggs with efficient strokes. His wife, Wyatt's mother, she was refined, educated, everything he wanted. But she was also steel underneath, could stare down a rattlesnake and make it apologize. Emma smiled despite herself. What happened to her? Fever. 8 winters ago. The old man's been bitter ever since. Margaret poured the eggs into a hot pan. He wanted Wyatt to marry someone like her, someone who could be both lady and lioness. I'm neither. Maybe not, but you're here. Margaret glanced at her. That counts for something. Breakfast was tense but brief. Wyatt's father ate in silence, reading a newspaper. Wyatt outlined the day's work. Fence repairs in the north pasture, cattle inventory, a meeting with the foreman about spring calving. Emma can help Margaret, his father said, not looking up from the paper. Emma's coming with me, Wyatt countered. To do what? Hold your tools? To learn the ranch. She's a woman. She's my partner, remember? Wyatt pushed back from the table. Emma, get your boots. We leave in 10 minutes. The north pasture was a 2-hour ride. Emma's legs still ached from yesterday, but she kept pace. The land opened up around them, endless sky, rolling hills, the mountains distant and snow-capped. It's beautiful, she said. It's hard, Wyatt corrected. Beautiful, yes, but hard. You see those trees? He pointed to a distant line of cottonwoods. That's the creek. Only reliable water in summer. Everything depends on it. They reached the fence line. Several posts were leaning, wire sagging. Winter damage, Wyatt explained. He dismounted, started unloading tools from his saddlebag. Frost heaves push the posts up. Wire stretches in the cold. Come spring, it all needs fixing. Show me how. He did. Emma watched him reset a post, tamp the earth, restring the wire. Then he handed her the tools. Your turn. Her first attempt was clumsy. The post wouldn't stay straight. The wire fought her. Wyatt didn't take over, just offered corrections. More leverage. Weight on your back foot. Don't fight the wire. Work with it. By the third post, she had the rhythm. By the fifth, her hands were blistered, but the post stood straight. Good, Wyatt said. Just that one word, but it warmed something in Emma's chest. They worked through the morning. Emma's back screamed. Her hands bled through the blisters. She didn't stop. Around noon, Wyatt called a break. They sat in the shade of a boulder, eating the bread and cheese Margaret had packed. You don't have to prove anything, Wyatt said. Yes, I do. Not to me. To everyone else, then. Emma flexed her sore hands. Your father thinks I'm useless. The ranch hands think I'm a joke. Even Margaret is waiting for me to fail. Margaret doesn't think that. How do you know? Because she gave you the good knife. At Emma's confused look, Wyatt smiled. The one you used for potatoes. That was her knife. The one she's had for 20 years. She doesn't let anyone touch it. Emma thought about that. About a small gesture that might mean acceptance, or might mean nothing. What about you? She asked. Do you think I'll fail? Wyatt was quiet for a long moment. I think you'll surprise everyone. Probably including yourself. They rode back as the sun began its descent. Emma was so tired she could barely think. But when they crested the last hill and saw the ranch spread out below, she felt something shift. This was hers now, for better or worse. A rider was waiting in the yard. Emma didn't recognize the horse or the man astride it. Tall, lean, expensive suit that looked ridiculous in ranch country. Trouble, Wyatt muttered. They dismounted. The stranger turned and Emma saw his face, smooth, calculating, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Wyatt Brooks, the man said. Been a while. Not long enough, Chambers. Chambers' gaze slid to Emma. And who's this? My wife. The smile widened. Wife? My. Congratulations. I hadn't heard you'd married. It was recent. Clearly. Chambers circled them like a vulture. I'm here to discuss the water rights. Your father and I have been in negotiations. My father handles the business. Actually, I think you'll want to hear this. Chambers pulled a document from his jacket. The creek that runs through your north pasture? Turns out the rights are a bit more complicated than your family believed. Wyatt's expression went dangerous. What are you talking about? I'm talking about a claim that predates your grandfather's purchase. A claim that, if validated, would give me legal access to divert that water. All of it, if I choose. Emma felt Wyatt go rigid beside her. The creek was everything. Without it, the ranch died. That's a lie, Wyatt said. It's documented. I have the surveys, the original deeds. Would you like to see them? Chambers didn't wait for an answer. Of course, we could resolve this amicably. I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to negotiate. Negotiate what? A partnership. Merge our operations. Your land. My capital. We'd both benefit. My land isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Wyatt. It's just a matter of price. Chambers' eyes glinted. Think about it. Talk to your father. I'll be back in a week for your answer. He rode off, leaving dust and tension in his wake. Is he bluffing? Emma asked. I don't know. Wyatt's jaw was tight. But if he's not, if he can actually take the water. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Emma understood. This ranch, this life, everything hung by a thread, and someone had just started cutting. Inside, Wyatt's father was in his study, whiskey already poured. Wyatt told him about Chambers. The old man listened in silence. Then he threw his glass against the wall. That son of a... He bit off the curse. He's been circling for months. I thought we'd settled this. Apparently not. The documents are solid. They have to be. Your grandfather was careful. Was he? Wyatt's voice was hard. Because from where I'm standing, it seems like maybe he cut corners. Maybe the whole foundation of this place is built on sand. His father's face went purple. You watch your mouth. Why? Because you don't want to hear the truth? Because you don't know what you're talking about. I've held this ranch together for 40 years. Through drought, through depression, through fraud. The words came out before Emma could stop them. Both men turned to stare at her. What did you say? The old man's voice was deadly quiet. Emma's heart was racing, but she pushed forward. If Chambers has proof of a prior claim and your family bought the land anyway, that's fraud, or at least negligence. You have no idea. I keep books, Emma interrupted. I know what hidden numbers look like, what covered up mistakes look like. My father's been doing it for years. How dare you? She's right, Wyatt's voice cut through. If there's a problem with the deeds, we need to know, now, before Chambers comes back with lawyers. The old man slumped into his chair. Suddenly, he looked every one of his 60-plus years. The creek rights were complicated. When my father bought the land, there were disputes, claims from earlier settlers. He thought he'd resolved them. Thought? He paid people off, made deals. Some of them were documented, some weren't. The silence that followed was crushing. So Chambers might actually have a case, Wyatt said. Maybe. I don't know. The papers are stored in the safe. I haven't looked at them in years. Then we look now. They spent the next 3 hours in the study going through documents. Emma read through deeds, surveys, purchase agreements. The papers were yellowed, some barely legible. And in the margins, in faded ink, she found notes. Payments made under the table. Signatures that didn't quite match. Dates that overlapped impossibly. Here, she said, pointing. This deed is dated March 15th, but this payment record shows the previous owner still making water claims in April. He couldn't have sold in March if he was still using the water in April. Wyatt leaned over her shoulder. Unless the March deed was backdated. Which would be fraud, Emma finished. Wyatt's father made a sound somewhere between a groan and a curse. My father swore everything was legal. Your father lied, Wyatt said flatly. Or he didn't care. Either way, we're sitting on a problem. So what do we do? Emma asked. The old man looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since she'd arrived. You seem to have opinions. What do you think? It was a trap, probably. But Emma answered anyway. We can't fight Chambers if he has legitimate documentation, but we can negotiate from a position of honesty, admit the problems, offer to work out a fair solution before this goes to court. That's surrender. That's survival, Emma countered. If this goes to court and he wins, we lose everything. If we negotiate now, we might keep most of it. Wyatt was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. She's right. You want to give that vulture what he wants? I want to keep the ranch operational, Wyatt said. And if that means admitting my grandfather made mistakes, then so be it. The old man looked between them. Then he stood abruptly. Do what you want. You're going to anyway. He left. Wyatt and Emma sat in the aftermath, surrounded by evidence of old sins. You didn't have to jump in like that, Wyatt said quietly. Yes, I did. This is my problem now, too. Is it? Emma met his eyes. You said we're partners. That means your problems are my problems. Something shifted in Wyatt's expression. Yeah, I guess it does. They worked late into the night, organizing documents, making notes. By the time Emma stumbled to bed, her eyes were burning. But she'd seen something tonight. A crack in Wyatt's father's armor. A moment where he'd actually listened to her. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. The next morning, Emma woke to shouting. She threw on clothes and ran downstairs. In the front yard, a dozen cattle were loose, trampling through what must have been a kitchen garden. Ranch hands were trying to herd them back, but the cattle were spooked, scattering. What happened? Emma asked a passing hand. Fence broke north side. They got through before anyone noticed. North side, where she and Wyatt had worked yesterday, where her repairs had apparently failed. Wyatt's father was in the yard, his face thunderous. When he saw Emma, his expression turned venomous. This is your fault, he said, your shoddy work. Those cattle could have gotten into the creek, ruined the water. It wasn't her work, Wyatt cut in, striding over. We worked that fence together. Then you're both incompetent. Emma felt the words like a slap, but she forced herself to move past them, to look at the situation. Where's the break? What does it matter? It matters because if we know where and how, we can fix it properly. She turned to the ranch hand. Show me. The fence was down in a section she hadn't touched. The wire had snapped, not pulled loose, snapped clean through. This wasn't bad repair, Emma said, examining it. This was cut. Wyatt knelt beside her, ran his finger along the wire. She's right. Look at the edge, too clean for weather damage. Who would cut our fence? The ranch hand asked. Wyatt and Emma exchanged looks. Chambers, Wyatt said, making his point. You can't prove that. Can't I? Wyatt stood. He shows up with threats. The next day our fence is sabotaged. That's not coincidence. His father had followed them. He stared at the cut wire with an expression Emma couldn't read. Fix it, he said finally, and double the night watch. If someone's playing games, they're going to find we don't play nice. Over the next week, small disasters mounted. A broken gate, spooked horses, contaminated feed that made 3 cattle sick. Nothing major enough to cripple them, but enough to keep everyone on edge. And Emma was always there, helping repair the gate, calming the horses, mixing fresh feed, learning by doing, refusing to hide in the house while the ranch fell apart around her. The hands noticed. She caught them watching her, not with the mockery she'd expected, but with something closer to curiosity. One evening, after a long day of work, one of them approached her. Ma'am? He was young, maybe 20, with nervous hands. That thing you did with the horses, singing to calm them, where'd you learn that? My mother, Emma said. She had a way with animals. He nodded. It worked. Better than anything we tried. It was a small thing, but it felt like a victory. Chambers returned on schedule, smug and certain. Wyatt met him in the yard with Emma at his side. Have you considered my offer? Chambers asked. We have, Wyatt said, and we have a counter-proposal. Chambers raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. We split the water rights. You get access 3 days a week. We get the rest. We both sign an agreement acknowledging the disputed history and committing to shared use. That's not... It's fair, Emma interrupted, and it's final. You can accept it, or we can take this to court and let a judge decide. But if we do that, we'll be presenting evidence of sabotage, cut fences, poisoned feed. I'm sure the law would be very interested. Chambers' smile faltered. You can't prove? Maybe not. But we can create enough doubt to make your claim shaky. Emma held his gaze. Take the deal, Mr. Chambers. It's more than you deserve. For a long moment, Chambers just stared at her. Then he laughed, short and sharp. You're tougher than you look. Most people are. He considered, then nodded. Fine. 3 days. But I want it in writing. Legal documents. No loopholes. Agreed. They shook on it. Chambers rode away and Emma felt Wyatt's eyes on her. What? She asked. Nothing, just you're full of surprises. Is that bad? No. He smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. It's not bad at all. That night at dinner, Wyatt's father was quiet. He ate methodically, drank his whiskey, didn't speak. Finally, as Margaret cleared the plates, he said, You did well. With Chambers. Emma wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. Sir? I said you did well. He met her eyes. I still think my son made a mistake choosing you, but maybe you're not entirely useless. It wasn't praise. Not really. But coming from him, it felt like a coronation. Emma lay in bed that night, every muscle aching, her hands raw from work. But for the first time since she'd arrived, she felt like maybe she belonged here, like maybe she could build something real. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Outside her window, the ranch sprawled under starlight. Her ranch now, her battle. And she was just getting started. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the Chambers agreement was signed. Emma found it wedged in the doorframe of her room. No envelope, just folded paper with her name scrawled across the front in handwriting she recognized instantly. Lydia's. Emma's fingers trembled as she unfolded it. The words were brief, sharp as cut glass. You took everything. I hope you're happy with your cowboy and his dirty ranch. Father hasn't been sober since you left. But I suppose that's not your problem anymore, is it? Just remember, you can pretend to be something you're not, but eventually everyone sees the truth. You're still just the girl who wasn't good enough. Don't bother writing back. We've already buried you. Emma read it twice, then a third time. Each pass made her angrier and more hollow at once. She should have expected this, should have known Lydia wouldn't let it rest. But seeing the venom in black and white still felt like a punch to the gut. Emma? Wyatt's voice from the hallway. You ready? We need to check the south herd before... He stopped in the doorway. What's wrong? Nothing. That's not nothing. He gestured to the letter. Emma folded it quickly. Just family news. Bad news. Is there any other kind? She forced a smile that probably looked as fake as it felt. I'm fine, let's go. But Wyatt didn't move. If something's happened, if you need to go back... I'm not going back. The words came out harder than she intended. There's nothing there for me. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But if you want to talk about it, I don't. They rode out in silence. Emma was grateful for the work, for the distraction of counting cattle and checking for signs of illness. Anything to stop thinking about Lydia's words echoing in her head. You're still just the girl who wasn't good enough. By midday, they'd covered the south pasture and started back toward the ranch. The sky had that heavy quality that promised rain, clouds building dark and pregnant with storm. We should hurry, Wyatt said, eyeing the horizon. Don't want to get caught out in... A gunshot cracked across the valley. Both horses spooked. Emma's mare reared and she clung to the saddle, heart hammering. Wyatt had his rifle out before the echo faded. Stay behind me, he ordered. Another shot, closer this time. Emma saw the muzzle flash from a rocky outcrop maybe 200 yards east. Someone's shooting at us, she said, voice remarkably steady considering the terror flooding her system. Or warning us off. Wyatt urged his horse forward. Come on. You're riding toward the person shooting at us? I'm riding toward our land. They're the trespassers. Emma followed because the alternative was sitting alone in an open field while someone took pot shots at them. Her hands were slick on the reins. They crested a small rise and found 3 men on horseback near the fence line. Not ranch hands. Emma didn't recognize them. One had a rifle across his saddle. This is private property, Wyatt called out. The man with the rifle spat tobacco into the dirt. Not according to Chambers. Says he's got water rights now. Says we can graze our cattle here 3 days a week. The agreement is for water access, not grazing. Yeah? Maybe you should have been clearer in your contract. The man smiled, showing brown teeth. We got 200 head coming through tomorrow. Chambers said you wouldn't mind. Chambers lied. Or you did. The rifle shifted, just slightly, not quite pointing at them, but close enough. Seems to me there's some confusion about what was agreed to. We're just here to make sure our employer gets what's his. Emma's mind raced. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. Chambers had taken their compromise and twisted it, using the vague language to claim more than they'd agreed to. How much is he paying you? She asked suddenly. The 3 men looked at her like they'd just noticed she existed. What? The rifleman said. I asked how much Chambers is paying you, to come out here and threaten us, to push cattle onto land you know isn't yours. Lady, you should keep your mouth. $5 a day? Emma pressed. 10? Because whatever it is, it's not worth dying over. The man laughed. You threatening me? I'm telling you the truth. You push this, people get hurt. Maybe you, maybe us. And for what? So Chambers can steal a few extra acres? She met his eyes. You seem smarter than that. Emma, Wyatt said quietly. A warning, but she ignored him. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to ride back to Chambers and tell him we need to meet. Renegotiate. Put everything in writing so there's no confusion. And you're going to do it because starting a range war over water rights is stupid, and you know it. The silence stretched. Emma could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Wyatt's tension beside her. Then the rifleman lowered his weapon. You got nerve. I'll give you that. I've got common sense. The question is whether you do. He considered, then nodded to his companions. Let's go, but this isn't over. Chambers wants what he wants. Then Chambers can come talk to us himself instead of sending hired guns. They rode off. Emma waited until they were out of sight before letting herself shake. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, Wyatt said. It worked. This time. Next time they might just shoot first and talk later. He was angry, she realized. Actually angry. You can't negotiate with men like that. I just did. By getting lucky. Emma, these aren't dinner guests. They're hired muscle. They don't care about right or wrong. They care about getting paid. Which is exactly why talking worked better than shooting. She turned her horse toward home. If we'd pulled guns, someone would be dead right now. Maybe us. Wyatt caught up to her. You don't understand how things work out here. I understand that violence doesn't solve problems. It just creates new ones. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her shaky and irritable. You want to protect this ranch? Then we need to be smarter than our enemies, not just tougher. He didn't respond. They rode in tense silence until the rain started, big fat drops that quickly became a downpour. By the time they reached the barn, both were soaked through. Emma dismounted and started unsaddling her mare, fingers clumsy with cold and leftover fear. You scared me, Wyatt said suddenly. She looked up. He was standing in the barn doorway, water dripping from his hat. I didn't mean to. I know. But you did. He stepped closer. When that rifle came up, when I thought... He stopped. I can't protect you if you keep putting yourself in danger. I don't need protecting. Everyone needs protecting. Not from everything. Not all the time. Emma set down the saddle. You married me because I was strong, remember? Because I could handle hard things. You don't get to change your mind now because it turns out I actually meant it. Wyatt's jaw worked. It's different when I'm watching someone point a gun at you. Is it? Emma met his eyes. Or is it just that you're not used to having someone who fights back? The words landed harder than she'd intended. Wyatt flinched. That's not fair, he said quietly. Maybe not, but it's true. Emma gentled her tone. I appreciate that you want to keep me safe. I do. But I'm not Lydia. I'm not going to hide in the house while you handle everything. We're partners, remember? That means we face things together. The rain drummed on the roof. Somewhere in the back of the barn, a horse nickered softly. Yeah, Wyatt said finally. Partners? But something in his voice had shifted. Emma couldn't tell if it was acceptance or resignation. That night, Wyatt's father called an emergency meeting. The study was crowded. Wyatt, Emma, the ranch foreman, and two of the senior hands. Chambers is making his move, the old man said without preamble. He's claiming the agreement gives him grazing rights. Says he's bringing cattle through starting tomorrow. We told his men to send him here to talk, Emma said. And I'm sure he'll come. With lawyers and documentation, we can't fight. The old man looked older tonight, worn down. The original agreement was verbal. We should have put it in writing immediately. We tried, Wyatt said. Chambers kept stalling. Now we know why. Doesn't matter why. Matters that we're exposed. The foreman, a grizzled man named Porter, spoke up. If his cattle come through, they'll eat our grazing down to nothing. We'll lose our herd's feed. Can we stop them? One of the hands asked. Not legally, Wyatt said. Not without proof that the agreement doesn't include grazing. So we do it illegally, the old man said. Everyone turned to stare at him. You want to start a shooting war? Wyatt asked. I want to protect what's ours. If that means drawing a line in the dirt, then that's what we do. That's how people die, Emma said. That's how people survive. The old man's gaze was hard. You think Chambers will stop at grazing? He'll keep pushing until he owns everything. The water, the land, the whole valley. We stop him now, or we lose it all. Emma thought of the men with rifles, of Lydia's letter, of all the ways things could fall apart. There's another option, she said slowly. I'm listening. We bring in witnesses, get the original terms documented by people who were there. Your lawyer, anyone at the bank who handled the initial negotiations. We build a paper trail that proves what was actually agreed to. That'll take time, Porter said. Less time than rebuilding after a war. Emma looked around the room. And it's legal. No one goes to jail. No one dies. No one wins either, the old man said. Chambers has money. He can drag this out for years. Then we make him want to settle fast. We find leverage. What leverage? Emma thought about the document she'd found weeks ago. The evidence of fraud in the original land purchases. The shaky foundation this entire ranch was built on. Chambers isn't the only one with secrets, she said carefully. What if we suggested that a full legal review might uncover things he'd rather keep buried? His family has been in this valley as long as yours. Who's to say their land claims are any cleaner? The room went very quiet. That's blackmail, Wyatt said. That's negotiation. Emma held his gaze. We're not actually threatening to expose anything. We're just reminding him that court cases have a way of revealing more than anyone wants. Makes people reasonable. The old man laughed, short and sharp. You've got a ruthless streak. I like it. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. We try your way first, but if it fails, you can draw all the lines you want, Emma said, but give me a chance to fix this without bloodshed. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. 1 week. After that, we do things my way. The meeting broke up. Emma was heading for the stairs when Wyatt caught her arm. Can I talk to you? They went outside. The rain had stopped, leaving everything smelling of wet earth and sage. You're playing a dangerous game, Wyatt said. I'm trying to save the ranch. By threatening to destroy it. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. You bring up the land fraud. You're not just threatening Chambers. You're threatening us. Our legitimacy. Everything my family built. Everything your family stole, you mean? The words hung between them like a slap. That's not fair, Wyatt said quietly. But it's true. You said it yourself. Your grandfather made deals under the table, paid people off, cut corners. Maybe he thought it was necessary. Maybe he thought everyone did it, but that doesn't make it right. And you think exposing that makes us better? I think being honest about it makes us better. I think owning our mistakes instead of hiding them makes us better. Emma's voice was fierce now. Your father wants to fight Chambers with guns because he's afraid of losing everything, afraid of looking weak. But that fear is what's destroying this place. Not Chambers, not me. Fear. Wyatt was quiet for a long time. The moon was rising, painting everything in silver. You're probably right, he said finally. Probably. Definitely. He almost smiled. But knowing you're right doesn't make it easier. Nothing about this is easy. No. He looked at her, really looked at her. How do you do it? Stay so sure when everything's falling apart. Emma thought about Lydia's letter, about her father's rage, about all the years of being told she was worthless. I'm not sure, she admitted. I'm terrified most of the time, but I decided a long time ago that being scared wasn't a good enough reason to stop trying. Wyatt reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so gentle it made Emma's breath catch. I'm glad you're here, he said quietly. Even when I'm making everything complicated? Especially then. His hand lingered against her cheek. Emma felt something shift between them, something that had been building since that first day in her father's parlor. Then horses thundered into the yard, and the moment shattered. Emma turned to see 3 riders. Even in the moonlight, she recognized the lead horse, her father. No, she breathed, but it was him, older, thinner, meaner than she remembered. He dismounted with the unsteady movements of someone who'd been drinking. Emma, he roared, get out here! Wyatt stepped in front of her. Mr. Whitmore, you're on private property. I'm here for my daughter, the one your son stole. No one stole anyone. Emma made her choice. She's a child. She doesn't know what she's choosing. Her father's eyes found Emma behind Wyatt. Look at you, plain ranch wife. You think you belong here. She belongs here more than you belong anywhere, Wyatt said, voice hard. Boy, I'm not talking to you. Emma, come home, now. This foolishness has gone on long enough. Emma stepped around Wyatt. Her legs felt like water, but she kept her spine straight. I'm not coming home, she said. Yes, you are. I've talked to a lawyer. This marriage, it can be annulled. You were coerced. I wasn't. You were manipulated, confused. He took advantage. He asked. I said yes. That's called a choice. Her father's face went red. You don't make choices. I make choices. I'm your father. You stopped being my father the day you locked me in the cellar for burning dinner, Emma said, and watched him flinch. You stopped being my father every time you told me I was worthless. Every time you hit me. Every time you looked at Lydia like she was sunlight and me like I was dirt. I fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. You gave me a prison. Emma's voice cracked, but she pushed through it. And I'm not going back. Not for you. Not for Lydia. Not for anyone. You ungrateful! He lunged forward. Wyatt caught him, slammed him back against his horse. Touch her and I'll break your arm. She's my daughter! She's my wife, and if you set foot on this property again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Emma's father struggled against Wyatt's grip, but he was drunk and weak, and Wyatt was neither. After a moment, he stopped fighting. Fine, he spat. Keep her. You'll see soon enough what kind of mistake you made. She'll fail. She always fails. Then I'll fail with her, Wyatt said. He released Emma's father, who stumbled back to his horse. The three riders turned and disappeared into the darkness. Emma stood very still, afraid that if she moved, she'd shatter. Emma? Wyatt's voice was gentle. I'm fine. You're shaking. She was. She couldn't seem to stop. Wyatt guided her inside, sat her down in the study, poured her whiskey she didn't want but drank anyway. The burn helped. He's gone, Wyatt said. He won't come back. You don't know that. I do. He's a coward. Cowards don't fight when they're not winning. Emma set down the glass. The cellar. I shouldn't have mentioned the cellar. Why not? Because it makes me sound weak, broken. All the things you said you didn't want. Wyatt knelt in front of her, took her hands. You survived. That's not weakness. That's strength. I barely survived. But you did. You're here. You faced him down. Emma, do you have any idea how brave that was? She looked at their joined hands. His were work-roughened, warm, steady. I don't feel brave, she whispered. Brave people never do. The door opened. Wyatt's father stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I heard, he said. Emma waited for the criticism, for the reminder that she was damaged goods, that she'd brought her family's shame to their doorstep. Instead, he said, Your father's a bastard, and you're well rid of him. Then he left. Emma stared after him. Did he just defend you? Yeah. Wyatt smiled. I think you're growing on him. Like mold. Like something stronger than he expected. Wyatt stood, pulled her to her feet. Come on, you should rest. But Emma didn't want to rest. She wanted to do something, anything, to prove her father wrong, to prove she wasn't going to fail. The Chambers problem, she said. I want to solve it. Now. Tonight. Emma, it's late. I don't care. Where are the original negotiation notes? The ones from when you first talked to him? Wyatt hesitated, then went to the desk, pulled out a folder. Emma spread the contents across the desktop. Letters, mostly. A few telegraph exchanges. Nothing official, nothing binding. But there, in the margin of one letter, a single line that made her heart race. Water access contingent on shared maintenance of creek infrastructure. Look, she said, pointing. Wyatt leaned over her shoulder. Shared maintenance, so what? So if Chambers wants water rights, he has to help maintain the creek. That includes the dam, the irrigation channels, everything. Emma's mind was racing now. And I bet the cost of that maintenance is spelled out somewhere in the original surveys. She dug through the old documents until she found it. A breakdown of annual creek maintenance costs, dated from 20 years ago. $4,000 a year, she read, for upkeep, repairs, drought management. Chambers isn't going to pay half that. Exactly. Which means either he gives up the water rights or he hemorrhages money on maintenance. Either way, we win. Wyatt stared at her. That's ruthless? I was going to say brilliant. He was looking at her like he'd never seen her before. Emma, this could actually work. They spent the next 3 hours drafting a letter to Chambers. Polite but firm. Outlining the maintenance requirements. Attaching the cost documentation. Offering to renegotiate the entire agreement with proper legal documentation. The subtext was clear. Back off or this gets expensive. Emma sealed the letter with wax, her hands finally steady. I'll take it to town in the morning, Wyatt said. We'll take it. You don't have to. Partners, Emma reminded him. Remember? He smiled. Yeah, partners. They climbed the stairs together. At her door, Emma paused. Thank you, she said. For tonight. For standing up to my father. You stood up to him. I just kept him from hitting you. Still, she hesitated. It meant something. Having someone on my side. Wyatt's expression softened. You'll always have someone on your side now. Even when we disagree, even when you're driving me crazy. You're not alone anymore. The words hit Emma harder than she expected. Not alone. When had that last been true? Wyatt, she started, but didn't know how to finish. He seemed to understand anyway. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we end this thing with Chambers. He went to his room. Emma entered hers, closed the door. She should have been exhausted. Should have collapsed into bed. Instead, she stood at the window, watching the ranch under moonlight. Somewhere out there, Chambers was plotting. Her father was drinking. The world was waiting for her to fail. But Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt ready to fight, ready to prove everyone wrong, ready to build something that couldn't be taken away. And for the first time since she'd arrived, the ranch didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like home. Chambers arrived at noon the next day, earlier than expected, and without the lawyers Emma had anticipated. He came alone, which should have been reassuring but somehow wasn't. Emma watched from the upstairs window as he dismounted, handed his reins to a ranch hand, and adjusted his suit jacket. Even his posture was calculated, relaxed but ready, like a card player holding aces. "He's here!" she called to Wyatt. They met him in the study. Wyatt's father was already there, positioned behind the desk like a general at headquarters. Emma took a seat near the window where she could see Chambers' face in full light. "Gentlemen," Chambers said, then nodded to Emma. "Mrs. Brooks." "Mr. Chambers." Emma kept her voice neutral. "Thank you for coming. I admit your letter was intriguing. Maintenance costs from 20 years ago?" He smiled. "Creative. Binding," Wyatt corrected. "The original agreement your grandfather signed with ours included shared infrastructure costs. That hasn't changed, hasn't it? I seem to recall a lot of things changing around here lately." Chambers pulled a document from his jacket. "I had my own lawyers review the water rights. Interesting reading. According to their assessment, the maintenance clause was contingent on joint ownership. Since I'm claiming access, not ownership, the cost burden remains with you." Emma felt her stomach drop. She'd missed that. They all had. "That's a creative interpretation," Wyatt's father said. "It's a legal one, but I'm not here to argue semantics." Chambers leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. "I'm here to make you an offer, a real one this time, not another half-measure compromise." "We're listening," Emma said, though every instinct screamed not to trust whatever came next. "I buy the ranch, all of it, 60,000 acres, livestock, water rights, the whole package. I'll pay fair market value, more than fair actually, $200,000. The number hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. "You're out of your mind," Wyatt said. "Am I? Think about it. You're drowning in disputed claims, questionable deeds, and maintenance costs you can't afford. I'm offering you a way out. Take the money, start fresh somewhere else. No more fighting, no more looking over your shoulder. This ranch has been in my family for 3 generations, Wyatt's father said, his voice dangerously quiet. And how many more generations will it last? 1, 2? Or will it collapse in the next drought, the next dispute, the next time someone decides to dig into those shaky land titles? Chambers tapped the document in his lap. "I know what your grandfather did. I know about the backdated deeds, the under-table payments. I know because my grandfather did the same things. We all did. But the difference is I'm prepared to make it right. Clean slate, legal purchase. No one gets hurt. Except us," Emma said. "We lose everything." "You lose a liability. That's not the same thing." Chambers met her eyes. "Mrs. Brooks, you seem like a sensible woman. You've seen the books, the problems. You know this place is bleeding money. Why chain yourself to a sinking ship?" "Because it's our ship," Emma said, "and it's not sinking yet. Yet being the operative word." Chambers stood. "I'll give you 72 hours to consider. After that, the offer expires and we go back to fighting. And I promise you, I have deeper pockets and sharper lawyers. You'll lose eventually. This way you at least walk away with something." He left before anyone could respond. The silence in his wake was crushing. "Well," Wyatt's father said finally, "that went exactly how I expected." "We're not selling," Wyatt said immediately. "Did I say we were?" The old man poured himself whiskey, drank it in one swallow. "But he's not wrong about the problems. The deeds are shaky. The maintenance costs are real. And if he pushes this to court, then we fight him in court. Emma interrupted. Both men looked at her. With what? Wyatt's father asked. You saw those documents. Our claim is built on sand. A judge reviews those deeds. We're finished. Unless we fix them first. You can't fix fraud, Emma. It's already done. No, but you can acknowledge it. Openly. Publicly. She was thinking fast now, the pieces clicking together. Chambers thinks he has leverage because he knows about the shady land deals. But what if we beat him to it? What if we go to the Territorial Land Office, admit the historical irregularities, and apply for a reconciliation title? A what? Wyatt asked. It's something I read about in one of the old legal journals in your library. When there are disputes over historical land claims, the territory can issue reconciliation titles, essentially grandfathering in the current ownership while acknowledging past problems. It's designed for exactly this situation. Wyatt's father was staring at her like she'd grown a second head. That would mean admitting everything, making it public record. Yes, but it would also settle the question permanently. Chambers couldn't challenge our claim anymore because there'd be nothing to challenge. The territory would have already ruled on it. And if they rule against us, then we lose. But we're losing anyway if we do nothing. Emma leaned forward. At least this way we control the narrative. We come forward as honest landowners trying to correct historical wrongs, not criminals trying to hide them. That's insane, the old man said. That's survival, Emma countered, throwing his own words back at him. Wyatt was quiet, his expression thoughtful. It could work, if the territory is willing to hear the case. They will be, especially if we frame it as wanting to establish clear title before any sale or transfer. Emma looked at Wyatt's father. We're not the only ranch in this valley with complicated history. If we get a reconciliation title, it sets precedent. Other landowners will want the same protection, which makes us popular with the neighbors instead of outcasts, Wyatt finished. Emma, that's risky, his father said. Expensive, possibly career-ending for all of us. Or possibly ranch-saving, Emma said. Your choice. Take Chambers' money and walk away, or fight for what's yours the right way. The old man looked at his son. What do you think? I think Emma's right. Wyatt met his father's eyes. I think we've been hiding from this problem for too long. Time to face it head on. A long pause. Then the old man nodded slowly. All right, we'll try it your way. But if this backfires, then we'll deal with it together, Emma said firmly. The next week was chaos. Emma drafted the petition for reconciliation title while Wyatt gathered every piece of documentation they had. They hired a lawyer from the territorial capital, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Morris, who didn't flinch when Emma laid out the full scope of the problem. You're not the first family built on questionable foundations, Morris said, reviewing the documents, and you won't be the last. The question is whether the territory sees value in resolving this or wants to make an example of you. How do we make them see value? Wyatt asked. We show them you're not trying to cheat anyone, that you want legitimate ownership and you're willing to pay for it. Morris tapped the petition. We'll propose a settlement fund, money set aside to compensate anyone with a legitimate prior claim. Shows good faith. How much money? Wyatt's father asked warily. $10,000 minimum. Maybe more depending on who comes forward. He winced but didn't argue. They filed the petition on a Friday. By Monday, word had spread through the valley like wildfire. Emma heard the whispers when she went to town for supplies, saw the stares, the judgment. Heard the Brooks family finally admitted they're land thieves, one woman said, not quite quietly enough. Emma kept walking, head high, even as her face burned. At the Mercantile, the owner was less subtle. Is it true about your land claim? It's true we've filed for reconciliation, Emma said evenly. We want clear title. Nothing dishonest about that. Except the dishonesty that got you the land in the first place. That was 3 generations ago. We're trying to make it right. By keeping land you stole? Emma set down the flowers she'd been examining. My husband's grandfather made mistakes. We're not hiding from that. But we've also worked this land for 40 years, built something, employed people, contributed to this valley. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the same chance at legitimate ownership everyone else has. The owner didn't look convinced, but he sold her the supplies. The real blow came that evening when 3 neighboring ranchers showed up at the house, angry and armed with accusations. "You've got some nerve," the largest one, a man named Hutchins, said. "Filing that petition makes all of us look bad. Makes the whole valley look like thieves." "We're not accusing anyone else of anything," Wyatt said carefully. They were standing in the yard, the tension thick enough to cut. Don't have to. You open this door, the territory starts investigating everyone. Starts questioning every deed, every claim. You've put us all at risk. "Or we've given you all a path to protection," Emma said, stepping forward despite Wyatt's hand on her arm. "If the territory approves reconciliation for us, they'll approve it for you. Clean titles. No more worrying about someone digging up old claims." "We weren't worried until you started digging," another rancher spat. "Then you were fools," Emma shot back. "Because Chambers is digging anyway. He'll come for your land next, find your grandfather's shady deals, and use them against you. At least now you can get ahead of it." "She's right," Hutchins said reluctantly. "Chambers has been sniffing around my water rights too, asking questions." "So file your own petition," Emma pressed. "Join us. Make this a valley-wide effort instead of just the Brooks family trying to save ourselves." The ranchers exchanged looks. "We'll think about it," Hutchins said finally. "But Brooks, if this blows up in our faces, we'll remember who lit the match." They left. Emma's hands were shaking again. "You're getting good at that," Wyatt said. "At what?" "Turning enemies into reluctant allies." He smiled, but it was strained. "Though I wish you'd stop putting yourself in the line of fire." "Someone has to. It doesn't have to be you." "Yes," Emma said quietly. "It does. Because I'm the one nobody expects anything from. When your father makes demands, people push back. When you make demands, they see entitlement. But when I ask for things, they don't see it coming." Wyatt studied her face. "You're using their contempt as a weapon." "I'm using whatever tools I have." He looked like he wanted to argue, but footsteps interrupted. Margaret appeared on the porch. "Sir, there's someone here to see Mrs. Brooks. Says it's family." Emma's stomach clenched. "My father?" "Your sister." Lydia stood in the parlor like she owned it, examining the furniture with the critical eye of an appraiser. She wore traveling clothes, dusty from the road, but still managed to look polished in a way Emma never had. "Lydia," Emma stopped in the doorway. "What are you doing here?" "Is that how you greet family?" Lydia turned and Emma saw the exhaustion in her face, the tight lines around her mouth. "I came to see you." "Why? Can a sister visit?" "Not when that sister sent a letter telling me I was dead to her." Lydia had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I was angry." "You were honest." "Maybe both." Lydia sat without being invited, smoothing her skirts. "Are you going to offer me tea, or are we enemies now?" Emma should have called Margaret, played hostess. Instead, she sat across from Lydia and waited. "Father's getting worse," Lydia said finally. "Drinking more. Angrier. He sold the last of the cattle last week." "That's not my problem." "Isn't it? You left. You abandoned us." "I saved myself. There's a difference." Lydia's jaw tightened. "Easy for you to say. You got to escape." "I'm still stuck there, watching everything fall apart, listening to him rage about the daughter who betrayed him." "Is that what I did? Betray him?" Emma's voice was hard. "Or did I just refuse to keep bleeding for a man who never cared if I lived or died?" "He's our father. He's a drunk and a tyrant, and I'm done pretending otherwise." Emma leaned forward. "What do you want, Lydia? Really? Because if you came here looking for sympathy, you're wasting your time." Lydia's composure cracked. "I need help. Money. Father owes people, and they're starting to come collect. If we don't pay, then he faces consequences, like adults do." "Emma, please. I know I was horrible to you. I know I said terrible things, but I'm begging you. Help us." Emma wanted to feel satisfaction at seeing her perfect sister brought low. Instead, she just felt tired. "How much does he owe?" $500. It was a fortune. More than Emma had, more than she could ask Wyatt for without explaining everything. "I can't give you that." "Can't or won't. Both." Emma stood. "Lydia, I'm sorry you're in this position. I am. But I can't save you from him. I couldn't even save myself. I had to run. Maybe it's time you did the same." "And go where?" "Do what?" I don't have a convenient husband waiting to rescue me. Then make your own way. Learn a trade. Find work. Stop waiting for someone to save you and save yourself. Lydia laughed, bitter and sharp. You always made it sound so easy. Just be strong. Just work hard. Just stop caring what anyone thinks. But some of us aren't built like you, Emma. Some of us need… What? A man to take care of you. That's what Father always said you'd get. A rich husband who'd solve all your problems. Emma's voice was gentler now. But what happens when there's no rich husband? When you're alone and scared and the only person you have is yourself? I don't know, Lydia whispered. That's the problem. I don't know how to be anything other than what I was raised to be. For the first time, Emma saw her sister clearly. Not as the enemy, the favorite, the one who had everything Emma didn't, but as another woman damaged by their father's cruelty, just in different ways. I can give you $50, Emma said quietly. It won't solve everything, but it's what I have without asking Wyatt. Why would you help me? After everything I said, because you're my sister, and because I remember what it feels like to be trapped. Emma met Lydia's eyes. But this is the last time. After this, you're on your own. You need to figure out who you are without Father controlling you. Lydia nodded, tears streaming down her face. How did you do it? How did you get brave enough to leave? I got scared enough, Emma said. Scared enough that leaving was less terrifying than staying. You'll get there too eventually. She gave Lydia the money and watched her ride away an hour later. Wyatt found her standing in the yard, staring at the dust cloud her sister left behind. Family visit? He asked. Something like that. You gave her money. Emma looked at him, surprised. How did you know? I know you, and I know that look. He stepped closer. You don't have to explain. It's your money. Is it? I'm your wife. Everything I have is technically yours. That's not how I see it. Wyatt took her hand. What's mine is ours. What's yours is yours. I thought we agreed on that. Emma squeezed his fingers. She's going to waste it. Probably give it straight to my father to drink away. Maybe. Or maybe she'll surprise you. I doubt it. People surprise you all the time. You surprised me. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Still do, actually. Emma felt heat rise in her face. They were standing very close now, close enough that she could see the gray flecks in his blue eyes, close enough to feel his breath. Wyatt, she started. There you are? Wyatt's father's voice shattered the moment. He came striding across the yard, waving a telegram. News from the territorial office, they've scheduled a hearing 3 weeks from now. Emma's heart jumped. They're actually considering it? Considering it, not approving it. We still have to make our case. He looked between them, seemed to notice something, and cleared his throat. There's more. Chambers filed a counterpetition. Claims we're trying to defraud the territory. Of course he did, Wyatt muttered. So we need to be perfect. Documentation flawless. Arguments airtight. We get one shot at this. The next 3 weeks were the hardest Emma had ever worked. They cataloged every document, every payment, every transaction related to the ranch's land. Catherine Morris drilled them on testimony, on presentation, on how to answer hostile questions without looking defensive. Emma barely slept. When she did, she dreamed of courtrooms and failure, and her father's voice telling her she was worthless. The hearing was held in the territorial capital, in a building far grander than anything Emma had seen. The hearing officer was a severe woman named Judge Blackwood, who looked like she'd never smiled in her life. Chambers was there with 3 lawyers. The Brooks family had Catherine Morris and a prayer. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Chambers's lawyers went first, painting a picture of systematic fraud, of a family built on stolen land trying to legitimize their theft. Then it was Catherine's turn. She was brilliant, calm, methodical, devastating. She presented the evidence of historical confusion over land claims, showed how the territory itself had contributed to the problem with inconsistent surveying. She brought in testimony from other ranchers facing similar issues, painted the Brooks family not as criminals, but as victims of a chaotic system trying to do right. And then she called Emma to testify. Mrs. Brooks, Catherine said, tell the court why your family filed this petition. Emma's mouth was dry. The room was packed, every eye on her. She saw Chambers in the front row smirking. Because hiding doesn't fix problems, Emma said. My husband's grandfather made mistakes, cut corners. did things that maybe weren't entirely legal, but we can't change that. All we can do is own it and try to make it right. And you believe reconciliation title is the right path? I believe honesty is the right path. Whether that leads to reconciliation or not, that's for you to decide. But we're not going to keep hiding from our history. We're not going to keep pretending everything was perfect when it wasn't. Why? Judge Blackwood asked suddenly. Why not just take Mr. Chambers' offer, sell the land and walk away? Emma turned to face her. Because that land is more than property. It's 40 years of work, of building something, of employing people and contributing to the valley and making something out of nothing. Yes, the foundation was flawed, but the structure we built on it, that's real. That matters. And walking away doesn't fix the original problem. It just passes it to someone else. The judge's expression didn't change. Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. The hearing ended. Judge Blackwood said she'd render a decision within 2 weeks. The ride home was silent. Emma was numb with exhaustion and terror. You did well, Wyatt said finally. Did I? I couldn't tell. You were honest. That's all we could do. At the ranch, Wyatt's father was waiting. He looked older, worn by the stress. Well? He asked. We wait, Wyatt said, and we hope. The decision came 12 days later. Emma was in the barn when the telegram arrived, and she knew from the way Wyatt ran across the yard, from the expression on his face. We won, he said, breathless. Reconciliation granted, conditional on the settlement fund, but granted. Emma's legs gave out. She sat hard on a hay bale. We won? She repeated. We won. And then Wyatt was pulling her up, spinning her around, laughing like a boy instead of a man carrying the weight of generations. They told Wyatt's father together. He read the telegram 3 times, like he didn't trust it. I'll be damned, he said finally. Then he looked at Emma. You saved us. You know that? We saved ourselves, Emma corrected. No. He shook his head. I would have fought Chambers with guns. Wyatt would have tried to negotiate. You changed the whole game, made us face our problems instead of running from them. He paused. I was wrong about you. You're not a mistake. You're the best decision my son ever made. Coming from him, it meant everything. That night they celebrated. Margaret cooked a feast. The ranch hands joined them, drinks flowing, tension finally breaking. Emma found herself laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in months. Late in the evening, she stepped outside for air. The stars were brilliant, the night cool and clear. Wyatt followed her. Hey, he said softly. Hey yourself. They stood in comfortable silence. Then Wyatt said, I need to tell you something. Emma's stomach tightened. What? I love you. The words hung in the air between them, simple and devastating. You don't have to say it back, Wyatt continued quickly. I know this started as a business arrangement. I know we agreed it was just partnership. But somewhere along the way it became more for me. And I thought you should know. Emma's heart was hammering. When? When did it become more? Honestly? The first day. When you stood up to my father at dinner. When you didn't crumble. He smiled. But I knew for sure when you faced down those men with rifles. When you solved the Chambers problem by being smarter instead of harder. When you turned our biggest weakness into strength. I'm not strong, Emma whispered. You're the strongest person I know. Wyatt stepped closer. And if you don't feel the same way, that's okay. I'll take whatever you can give me, partnership, friendship, whatever. But I wanted you to know, you're not just my wife, you're everything. Emma thought about the past months, about every moment Wyatt had stood beside her, defended her, believed in her. About the way he looked at her like she mattered, like she was enough. I'm terrified, she said. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of wanting something this much and having it taken away. It won't be taken away. You can't promise that. You're right. I can't. Wyatt cupped her face in his hands. But I can promise to fight for it, for you, for us, every day. Is that enough? Emma thought of her father's rage, Lydia's bitterness, all the ways love had been weaponized in her life. And then she thought of Wyatt's steady hands, his quiet strength, the way he'd chosen her when no one else had. Yes, she said, it's enough. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home. The kiss changed everything and nothing at once. Emma woke the next morning in her own bed, alone as always, but the house felt different, lighter somehow, like a weight had lifted that she hadn't known she was carrying. Wyatt was already in the kitchen when she came down, discussing the day's work with Porter. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her face heat. "Morning," he said. "Morning." Margaret glanced between them, her mouth twitching in what might have been a smile. "Coffee's ready, Mrs. Brooks." The day unfolded like any other. Fences to check, cattle to count, endless small repairs that kept a ranch functioning. But Emma caught Wyatt watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, and she couldn't stop the warmth that spread through her chest each time. They were mending a gate in the east pasture when Porter rode up, his face grim. "We've got visitors," he said. "From the bank." Emma's stomach dropped. They'd been so focused on the land title that she'd almost forgotten about the other problem. The ranch's mounting debts, the loans taken out to cover legal fees and settlement costs. The banker was a thin man named Reeves, who looked uncomfortable in his city suit. He sat in Wyatt's father's study with a leather folder full of documents that probably spelled disaster. "The reconciliation title is excellent news," Reeves said, not sounding like he thought it was excellent at all. "However, it doesn't change the fact that you've borrowed heavily these past months. The bank needs assurance that you can repay." "We will," Wyatt's father said. "The spring calving is strong. We'll have cattle to sell." "In 6 months, yes, but you have payments due now." Reeves opened the folder. $12,000 by the end of next month. "Can you meet that obligation?" The silence was damning. "We're working on it," Wyatt said. "Working on it isn't a payment plan." Reeves looked genuinely regretful. "I'm sorry, but without a concrete plan to address the debt, the bank will have no choice but to call in the loans. That means liquidation, sale of assets." "You want us to sell the ranch?" Emma asked. "We want you to pay your debts. How you do that is up to you." After Reeves left, the three of them sat in heavy silence. "We could sell some of the herd," Wyatt suggested. "Take a loss on the price, but get cash quickly." "That leaves us short for winter," his father countered. "We need those cattle." "Then what do you suggest?" "I don't know." The old man looked every one of his years. "Maybe Chambers had the right idea. Maybe we should have sold when we had the chance." "No," Emma said sharply. "We didn't fight this hard just to give up now." "You have a better idea?" Emma thought about the ranch, about what made it valuable. Not just the land or the cattle, but the water rights they'd fought so hard to protect. The clean title they'd just won. The infrastructure they'd built over decades. "We find investors," she said slowly. "People who see value in what we've built. We don't sell the ranch, we sell shares in it. Bring in capital without giving up control." Wyatt's father stared at her. "That's crazy?" Emma finished. "Maybe, but it's better than selling to Chambers or losing everything to the bank." "How would that even work?" Wyatt asked. "We form a company, the Brooks Ranch Company. We retain controlling interests, say 60%. We sell the rest to investors who want a stake in a legitimate, legally titled cattle operation with proven water rights." Emma's mind was racing now. "We use the investment money to pay off the bank, expand the herd, maybe even buy adjacent land. Everyone profits. And if we can't find investors, then we're no worse off than we are now." Wyatt looked at his father. "It could work. It's a long shot." "Everything we've done so far has been a long shot," Emma pointed out. "And we're still here." The old man considered, then he nodded slowly. "All right, but you're the one pitching this. If you believe in it, you sell it." Emma felt a flutter of panic. "Me? Why me?" "Because you're the one who came up with it, and because—" He paused. "Because you're better at this than I want to admit. People listen to you, even when they don't want to." It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever gotten from him. Catherine Morris helped them draft the investment proposal. They set a target of $20,000, enough to pay the bank and have working capital left over. They'd offer a 20% share for $15,000, with an option for additional investment. "Who do we approach?" Wyatt asked. "Anyone with money and sense," Catherine said. "Merchants, other ranchers, maybe some of the territorial officials who saw value in the reconciliation ruling." They spent a week refining the pitch. Emma practiced until she could recite it in her sleep. The ranch's history, the reconciliation title, the water rights, the growth potential. She emphasized honesty, acknowledged the past problems while highlighting the solutions. Their first meeting was with a wealthy merchant named Harrison, who owned the largest general store in the territorial capital. He listened politely, asked sharp questions, and ultimately declined. "Too risky," he said. "Cattle are unpredictable. Weather's unpredictable. I prefer investments I can control." The second meeting went worse. The third never happened. The potential investor didn't even show up. After the fourth rejection, Emma sat in their hotel room and wanted to cry. They were running out of time and options. "We'll find someone," Wyatt said, but he sounded as discouraged as she felt. "What if we don't? What if this was a stupid idea and I've just wasted everyone's time?" "Then we tried. That's more than most people do." Emma looked at him. "How are you so calm?" "I'm not. I'm terrified." He sat beside her. "But I'm also not surprised. We're asking people to believe in something they can't see yet. That takes faith." "We don't have time for faith. We have 3 weeks before the bank payment is due." "Then we make them see it faster." Wyatt took her hand. "What's the one thing all those investors said? What was their biggest concern?" Emma thought back through the meetings. That cattle are unpredictable, that we can't guarantee returns. Right. So we show them predictability. We show them contracts. What contracts? "The ones we're going to get starting tomorrow." Wyatt stood, suddenly energized. "We go to the army fort, the mining camps, anywhere that needs steady beef supply. We lock in purchase agreements for the next year. Then we go back to investors and show them guaranteed buyers. That's predictability." Emma felt hope flicker. "That could work." "It will work because we're going to make it work." They spent the next week traveling to every fort, camp, and settlement within 3 days' ride. Emma negotiated prices while Wyatt handled logistics. By the end of the week, they had contracts for 8,000 head over the next 12 months, more cattle than they currently owned, but achievable if they expanded the herd. Armed with the contracts, they went back to potential investors. The response was immediate and dramatic. A rancher named Sullivan who'd dismissed them before now wanted to hear more. A banker from a neighboring territory asked detailed questions about expansion plans. A consortium of merchants in the capital requested a formal presentation. The formal presentation was terrifying. 20 men in expensive suits, all skeptical, all looking for reasons to say no. Emma stood at the front of the room with her charts and contracts, her mouth dry and her hands shaking. "The Brooks Ranch Company isn't asking you to gamble," she began. "We're offering you a stake in a proven operation with legal title, secured water rights, and guaranteed buyers. Yes, there are risks: weather, disease, market fluctuations. But those risks exist in any agricultural investment. What we're offering is transparency, honesty, and a management team committed to long-term success." She walked them through the numbers, the contracts, the expansion plans, answered their questions without defensiveness, admitted weaknesses while emphasizing strengths. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then a man in the back, older, silver-haired, clearly wealthy, stood. "Miss, I've been investing in cattle for 30 years. I've heard a lot of pitches. Most of them are nonsense dressed up in pretty language." He paused. "Yours isn't. I'm in for 5,000. The room erupted. Others jumped in, not wanting to miss the opportunity. By the time they left, they had commitments for $18,000, more than they needed. Emma walked out of that building feeling like she was floating. Wyatt picked her up and spun her around right there in the street. "We did it," he said. "You did it." "We did it," she corrected. They paid the bank the next week. Reeves looked stunned when they walked in with the full amount plus interest. "I have to admit," he said, "I didn't think you'd make it." "A lot of people didn't," Emma said. "We're getting used to it." Back at the ranch, Wyatt's father was waiting. When they told him about the investments, about the contracts, about the future they'd just secured, he did something Emma had never seen. He hugged his son, actually hugged him. "You did good, boy," he said, voice rough. Then he turned to Emma. "You both did." That night, Emma stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the ranch. Their ranch now, legally and financially, built on truth instead of lies, on partnership instead of power. She heard a soft knock. "Come in," she said, knowing it was Wyatt. He entered, hesitant. I thought we should talk about what happens now." "What do you mean?" "This arrangement, our marriage. It started as business, but—" He stopped. "I don't want it to be business anymore, but I also don't want to assume, don't want to push for something you're not ready for." Emma turned to face him fully. "What do you want?" "You. A real marriage, a real partnership, not just on paper." He met her eyes. "What do you want?" Emma thought about the months since she'd arrived, about every moment of fear and triumph, about learning to trust him, about the way he'd stood beside her through everything. "I want to stop being scared," she said quietly. "I want to stop waiting for this to be taken away. I want—" She swallowed. "I want you. I want this. I want us to be real." Wyatt crossed the room, took her hands. "We're already real. We've been real since the day you chose to come with me." "I didn't choose you, not really. I chose escape. And I chose capability over beauty. We were both running from something." He touched her face gently. "But somewhere along the way, we stopped running and started building. That's real. That's more real than most marriages ever get." Emma leaned into his touch. "I love you. I should have said it before when you told me, but I was scared and—" He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Move your things to my room," he said when they broke apart. "Tonight. No more separate beds. No more pretending this is temporary. Your father will be thrilled, trust me." Emma laughed, surprising herself. "All right, yes, tonight." The next months were harder than Emma had imagined and better than she'd dreamed. Running a ranch with investors meant accountability, meant reports and meetings, and constant pressure to perform. But it also meant resources. They bought 200 head of cattle, hired more hands, repaired buildings that had been falling apart for years. Emma found herself in a role she'd never expected, ranch manager in practice, if not in title. She kept the books, managed the contracts, negotiated with buyers. Wyatt handled the livestock and land. His father, grudgingly at first, stepped back to an advisory role. "You're better at this than I was," he admitted one evening. "Both of you. This place. It's stronger now than it's ever been." It was the closest thing to an apology Emma would get. She took it. Not everything was smooth. One of the investors tried to push for faster expansion than they could sustain. Emma had to stand firm, risk losing his support. He withdrew his investment, but the others stayed, trusting her judgment. A late frost killed part of the spring grass, forcing them to buy supplemental feed. It cut into profits but didn't break them. And then there was Chambers. He appeared at the ranch 6 months after the reconciliation ruling, unannounced and alone. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said when Wyatt reached for his rifle. "I'm here to talk business." They met in the yard, not willing to invite him inside. "Say what you came to say," Emma said. "I want to buy into your company." Silence. "You're joking," Wyatt said finally. "I'm not. You've done something impressive here, built something legitimate out of questionable foundations. I respect that." Chambers looked at Emma. "I underestimated you, Mrs. Brooks. Won't make that mistake again." "We don't need your money," Emma said. "Maybe not, but you could use my connections. I know every buyer from here to San Francisco. I have shipping contracts you couldn't get on your own." He pulled out a document. "I'm offering $20,000 for a 15% stake, non-voting shares. You keep control. I get profits and bragging rights." Emma looked at Wyatt, saw her own skepticism reflected. "Why?" she asked Chambers. "Why would you want to invest in us after everything?" "Because I'm a businessman, not a grudge holder. You won, fair and square. Now I want to be on the winning side." He smiled. "Plus, I genuinely think you're going to make this valley wealthy. I'd like to profit from that." They discussed it with the other investors, with Catherine Morris, with Wyatt's father. Everyone had opinions. In the end, it came down to one question. Could they trust him? "Trust no," Emma said, "but we can verify. We structure the agreement so he can't hurt us even if he wanted to. We take his money, use his connections, but keep all the control." They accepted Chambers' offer with so many legal protections that Catherine joked they were building a fortress. But it worked. His connections opened doors they couldn't have accessed alone. Within a year, the Brooks Ranch Company was supplying beef to 3 Army forts, 2 mining operations, and a network of merchants across the territory. Emma's role evolved from partner to leader. The investors started asking for her specifically at meetings. Other ranchers came to her for advice. She found herself consulting on land disputes, water rights, business structures. "You've become the valley's expert on everything," Wyatt teased one night. "Hardly. I just know how to admit what I don't know and find people who do." "That's called wisdom." Emma laughed. "That's called survival." But it was more than survival now. It was thriving. The letter from Lydia arrived on a Tuesday, almost a year after her last visit. Emma opened it with trepidation, expecting more demands or accusations. Instead, she found something else. "Emma, I'm writing from Denver. I left 2 months ago, after Father finally drank himself into a stupor he didn't wake up from. I know I should feel sadder about it. Maybe I will later. Right now I just feel free. I used the money you gave me, not the way you probably thought I would. I went to a teacher's college. I'm learning to teach, Emma. Me. The girl who thought her only value was her face. I don't know if I'll be good at it. I'm not good at much, it turns out. But I'm trying. I'm figuring out who I am when no one's telling me who to be. I was horrible to you, for years. I blamed you for being strong when I was weak, for choosing yourself when I couldn't. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but it's true. You don't have to write back. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but I wanted you to know you were right about everything, about Father, about saving myself, about being brave enough to leave. I hope you're happy. I hope that ranch and that husband appreciate what they have. Your sister Lydia." Emma read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Wyatt found her in the study, pulled her close without asking why she was crying. "She got out," Emma managed finally. "Lydia, she left. Is that good?" "Yes, it's good." Emma wiped her eyes. "It's really good." She wrote back that evening. A short letter, offering support if Lydia needed it, telling her about the ranch, about the life Emma had built. She didn't know if they'd ever be close, didn't know if the damage between them could be fully repaired. But it was a start. The second year brought new challenges. A drought tested their water management. A disease swept through part of the herd, forcing quarantines and tough decisions. One of the investors died, and they had to negotiate with his heirs. But they weathered each storm together. Emma stood in the yard one evening, watching Wyatt work with a new horse. She was pregnant now, 3 months along, her body changing in ways that terrified and amazed her. "You're staring," Wyatt called. "I'm appreciating." He grinned, handed the horse off to a ranch hand, and crossed to her. His hand went instinctively to her still flat stomach. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "Of?" "Being a terrible mother, raising a child in this chaos, all of it." Wyatt kissed her forehead. "You'll be amazing. You make miracles happen every day. What's one more?" Emma leaned into him. "When did you become an optimist?" "When I married a woman who turns impossible into inevitable." That night, they had dinner with Wyatt's father, who insisted everyone call him Robert now, said all the formality was exhausting. He'd softened in the past year, smiled more, drank less. He was excited about becoming a grandfather, though he tried to hide it. "Have you thought about names?" he asked over dessert. "A few," Wyatt said, "but we're not sharing yet." "Why not?" "Because you'll have opinions, and we're not ready for that," Emma said, smiling. Robert laughed. "Fair enough. But I hope—" He stopped, uncharacteristically emotional. "I hope this child knows how lucky they are, to have parents like you two, to grow up on a ranch built on truth instead of lies." Emma reached across the table, squeezed his hand. "They'll know. We'll make sure they know." Later, in their room now, no more separation. Emma and Wyatt lay tangled together, talking quietly about the future. "Do you ever regret it?" Wyatt asked. "Leaving your family, coming here?" "Never." Emma said it without hesitation. "Do you? Choosing me instead of Lydia?" "That's not even a question worth answering." He pulled her closer. "You're the best decision I ever made, this us. It's the only thing I've ever done that feels completely right." Emma thought about the girl she'd been a year and a half ago. Invisible. Worthless. Trapped in a life that was slowly killing her. She thought about that first ride away from everything she knew. about choosing uncertainty over cruelty, and she thought about everything that came after, the fights and the growth, the fear and the courage, the way she'd learned that strength wasn't about never being scared, it was about moving forward anyway. I used to think I wasn't enough, she said quietly, that I had to earn the right to exist, to take up space. And now I know that's garbage. I was always enough. I just needed to stop believing the people who said I wasn't. Wyatt was quiet for a moment. You've changed this place, Emma. Not just the ranch, the whole valley. The way people think about land rights, about honest business, about women in leadership. You've rewritten the rules. We rewrote them. Together. No. I helped. But you led. He kissed her temple. And you're going to keep leading. Our child is going to grow up watching their mother run an empire and thinking that's normal. Emma smiled in the darkness. Some empire. We still have debts. We're still one drought away from trouble. But we have a foundation now, a real one. Built on truth. He paused. Built on you. 6 months later, Emma gave birth to a daughter. The labor was brutal, 18 hours of pain that made her understand why women feared it. But when they placed the baby in her arms, tiny and perfect and screaming with fury at the world, Emma felt something shift in her chest. Hello, she whispered. I'm your mother. And I promise you'll never feel invisible. They named her Sarah, after Emma's mother. Robert cried when they told him, though he tried to hide it. The ranch continued to grow. They added sheep to diversify, built new irrigation systems, started a program training young ranchers in sustainable land management. Emma discovered she loved teaching, passing on what she'd learned through trial and error. She spoke at territorial meetings about women in business, about honest practices, about building something real. People listened. 3 years after arriving at the ranch as a desperate escape, Emma found herself addressing a room full of investors and business leaders about expansion plans for the Brooks Ranch Company. Sarah was with Margaret, probably wreaking havoc in the kitchen. Wyatt sat in the front row, grinning at her like she'd hung the moon. The question isn't whether we can grow, Emma told the room. It's whether we can grow responsibly, with integrity, with respect for the land and the people who depend on it. After the meeting, a young woman approached her, maybe 20, nervous, clutching a notebook. Mrs. Brooks, I just wanted to say, you're inspiring. I've been told my whole life that women can't run businesses. But you're proof that's not true. Emma remembered being that girl, hungry for proof that another way was possible. It's hard, she said honestly. People will doubt you. You'll doubt yourself. But if you want it badly enough, if you're willing to work for it, you can build anything. How did you know you could do it? I didn't. I just knew I had to try. Emma smiled. Sometimes not knowing is the only thing that makes you brave enough to start. That evening, sitting on the porch with Wyatt while Sarah chased chickens in the yard, Emma felt something she'd never expected. Peace. Not the absence of problems. They still had those, would always have those. But peace with herself. With her choices. With the life she'd built from nothing. What are you thinking? Wyatt asked. That I'm happy. Actually happy. She looked at him. Is that allowed? Why wouldn't it be? Because I spent so long thinking I didn't deserve it. That happiness was for people like Lydia, pretty people, perfect people. Wyatt took her hand. Happiness isn't for perfect people. It's for people brave enough to fight for it. Sarah squealed as a chicken evaded her, fell in the dust, and immediately got back up to chase it again. She's got your stubbornness, Wyatt observed, and your optimism. We're doomed. They laughed together, watching their daughter play in the yard of a ranch that was no longer built on lies. That was theirs not by theft or fraud, but by work and choice and refusing to give up. Emma thought about the woman she'd been, invisible, worthless, certain she had nothing to offer, and she thought about the woman she'd become, leader, mother, partner, someone who'd taken broken foundations and built something true. The ranch would face more challenges. There would be droughts and disputes, losses and setbacks, but they'd face them together, with honesty instead of hiding, with courage instead of fear. Emma Whitmore Brooks had learned something her father never understood. Strength wasn't about never falling. It was about standing back up every single time, and she was just getting started. Years later, when Sarah was old enough to ask questions, she'd want to know how Emma got here, how she went from invisible to invaluable. And Emma would tell her the truth, that she didn't become someone new. She just stopped pretending to be someone else, that she chose herself when no one else would, that she learned to see her own worth instead of waiting for others to grant it, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't fighting for something, it's fighting for yourself. The ranch spread out before them in the fading light, 60,000 acres of possibility, built on truth, sustained by partnership, growing into something that would outlast them all. Emma had spent her whole life being told she was nothing, and she'd proven, every single day, that nothing was exactly what she'd never been. She was strength. She was courage. She was the foundation everything else was built on, and she was enough. She'd always been enough. The stars came out one by one, painting the sky with light. Sarah finally gave up chasing chickens and ran to them, dirty and laughing and completely herself. Emma pulled her daughter close, looked at her husband, and felt the weight of everything she'd survived transform into gratitude for everything she'd become. This was her life, her choice, her triumph. And it was just the beginning.